This is Max Goldstein. I have Dan Fredinburg, Mr. Deal, Dr. Mike North, and we're just preparing here for our trip to the Baltics. And we're very pleased to announce our new project, Save the Ice. First, I want to kick it to Dan. Dan, you're just coming back from Mount Everest. Almost made it to the summit. Obviously, a lot of interesting events happened, but I want to first kick it to you on why we're launching this project and what we hope to achieve here on our trip to the Baltics. Dr. Mike North. We're just preparing here for our trip to the Baltics. And
thanks, Max. Appreciate the introduction. So as you said, I just got back from an adventure. I've been adventuring for quite some time. I've been going on to a lot of different places, different jungles, different mountains, and my most recent adventure to Mount Everest, it actually ended in a very peculiar way that I didn't really expect. I was one of the only teams on the mountain to survive the tragic avalanche that happened on April 18th, and one of the parts about that entire trip that really stuck out to me was that the humanity of it all. I really had an opportunity to see how humans react to terrifying situations and to actually see them in their native elements. It was very, very, very inspiring to me, and it really reminded me that on a lot of the adventures that we go on, no matter how great Mother Nature is and how wonderful all the different locations on our planet are, that the humans that are there are one of the key elements. And so this trip to the Baltics is really about spreading awareness of global warming. And for me, global warming is really that nexus between Mother Earth and humanity and the effects they're having on each other. And so I'm really excited about an opportunity to get out into the world and spread neat practices, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, and really drive home the importance of these issues and how huge they are for our near future. So, Mike, maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself. You've been in touch with really finding and repurposing great humans that have a lot of rare skill sets to improve the world.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to introduce my co-host here. This is Pixel. We call him Megapixel. He's sitting in with me. Yeah. One thing that we found at Reallocate is that people, they really want to do something. They really want to make a difference, and they just have to be given the opportunity to. Sometimes to reach them, you got to reach out and create events and occasions. And this trip is just such an occasion. It's an opportunity for us to travel, have some fun, but also to meet people and let them engage in the conversation. And I personally am just really excited to get out there and to see what people have to say. And so much of hearing what people have to say is sharing that with the rest of the world. So there's a core element to this. We're going to be doing a whole video production around the entire trip and also around the Save the Ice campaign. And it's going to be fun and it's going to be meaningful. And I'm thrilled that my co-producer from the new Discovery digital show that we're doing, In the Making, Jeff Deal, will be joining us on the trip. And so I'll let Jeff say a few words about what he sees on the video storytelling aspect of this show. Jeff?
All right, thanks, Mike. Well, I have some ideas about what we'll cover, but it's going to be also a lot of randomness, and I think we want to be situated to capture that as much as possible, also. But that obviously can't really be planned for. We just have to be ready for it and be flexible and be open, and yeah, let it happen. But I think that we'll probably be capturing the build out. So that'll be the first thing we get on the ground out there, and of course this vehicle that we're going to be traveling in is going to require some engineering and some ingenuity, and we'll chronicle that process. Once the vehicle's created, we jump in it and we start moving. So from there, it becomes adventure footage, right? And I see this thing moving through landscapes, going by landmarks, entering crazy towns that none of us really anticipate. Yeah, there'll be standard adventure stuff, right? Things are going to break. We're going to have to make repairs. All that stuff, while challenging and probably frustrating at times. Well, we're going to want to be open to capturing that as well, and I think that's going to make it a fuller experience for us and for the viewers.
So from a filmmaking perspective, you're saying that you hope things break down and that there are challenges?
I feel like an antagonist already.
Let's just say when things go wrong, I'll be there to capture it on film. So look your best.
So Jeff, you mentioned a number of different things, including a vehicle, constructing this vehicle. I think for the viewers out there who are just joining in and trying to learn a little bit about this organization, we might have sped ahead a bit. I'm gonna kick it to Dan to talk a little bit about the Viking campaign element of this trip, and how that all ties together to the Baltics.
Sure, Max, I can do that. So, in a nutshell, we're going to be landing in Stockholm, Sweden, in order to kick off a campaign, which is reminiscent of the campaigns that the Vikings participated in many years ago. And part of the reason for that is because history are some of the valuable points that are required in your life in order to really see what direction you're going. And without understanding what direction you're going, it's really hard to correct course in order to make change in the future. And when we're talking about global warming, it's important for us to look at our past and follow that all the way through into the future so that we can actually help make change and help spread awareness in the right ways. So in order to do that, the history that we're going to retrace is one from about in the 1500s. Around the mid-1500s, Ivan the Terrible was located in Russia and was at the time invading and was one of the biggest threats to the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. And if it weren't for a conglomeration of allies, the Swedes, the Poles, the Danes, and so on, coming to their aid, then one of the biggest dangers of their time would have overtaken the Baltic states. And so what we like to do is fast forward till today, where the greatest danger is no longer Ivan the Terrible, but is actually global warming. And what we'll do is we'll come in from Stockholm via a Viking ship and provide the same aid that was provided over 500 years ago by the Swedes. Mike, maybe you can talk a little bit more about how we'll procure a Viking ship and how we'll get to the beaches of Estonia.
And so much of that was about people coming together. And in this day and age, there needs to be that nucleation point, that thing that people can gather around. It really becomes a symbol of people uniting with a common goal and a purpose. And in this case, our Viking longship is that symbol. And it's a symbol of us literally traveling from this country to Sweden, creating the ship, and then bringing it down into the Baltic states and taking it through the states to start to gather attention and awareness to this great threat, which is climate change. And removing some of the stigma of, yes, it's a serious problem, but we also want to really bring it out into the mainstream. So the first step is creating the ship. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to buy a used vehicle in Sweden remotely, but it's it's quite an adventure in itself. And so I've been looking through various Swedish online used car sites and been looking for just the right vehicle. I have a friend on the ground in Sweden, Matthias, who has been setting things up for the trip. I am now registered with the Swedish version of DMV, so that I may now own a vehicle, and so that's a good first step. I told my Swedish friends that today, and they were a little surprised that I was able to pull that feat off. But I actually have a Swedish Social Security number, which is left over from when I was an exchange student there when I was 16 years old. So that's proving to be very handy. Looks like I'll be hopping on a plane first thing in the morning tomorrow, flying into Sweden, finding this vehicle, walking around with wads of cash, seeing if I can buy a used Volvo. And then from that point out, it's about finding a shop, it's about finding the right materials, finding some people that want to help out, and then building the ship, which will then be the centerpiece of our campaign as we travel from Sweden through the Baltic states. It's going to be quite a journey, and to me, a huge part of this is how do you go about sharing that journey with the world? How do you capture it, make it meaningful, make it engaging, and really broadcast it so a wide audience gets it? And I think we have all the right elements, but we definitely need to tie the story together. So maybe, Jeff, hey, do you want to talk a little bit about like the different tools we'll be using and how we're going to go about telling this epic tale?
Sure. Well, we're going to have a bunch of cameras. We'll have different types of cameras, from the small, like GoPros, to the large. I have a Sony FS700 that is pretty sweet and shoots super slow motion. So we'll be able to get a variety of shot types to tell the story with. The GoPros are kind of speak for themselves these days, but we'll be doing some creative stuff with those too, strapping them on various places on the vehicle, maybe probably strapping them onto people. I don't know, throwing them, who knows. Yeah, and then standard storytelling tools and techniques too. In addition to what I mentioned before, we'll of course be doing a lot of on-the-road interviews with everybody who's in the car, and so that'll give context for the full experience, the stuff that doesn't necessarily get captured on camera. Yeah, and we'll be talking about some of the big ideas that occur to us while we're on the road. Expectations versus realities, lessons learned, and yeah, just trying to find the dramatic turning points and capture those and transmit them on to the viewers.
That's great. And
that's great.
I'm just,
Max.
Yeah. I'd love to just chime in from my perspective, and Dan, I think we've been on a number of email threads while you're on the mountain, hoping to plan a vacation sometime around this time, and I think what's most exciting for me is that I have not been a big activist throughout my life, but I do think that the situation with global warming is getting somewhat ridiculous, in that even for someone who's been more passive on these issues, even an opportunity like taking a vacation, I think, is an opportunity to highlight the fact that we could be taking these situations for granted, looking back in the next 20 or 30 years, going on a trip with your friends to the Baltics. And so, getting involved with Jeff, getting involved with Mike, starting this journey on Save the Ice has been great so far. And, I'd love to, hear from Mike and Dan a little bit on, how you guys envision taking this project further after the Baltics, and how we can make this actually something that, started as kind of a fun idea, but really is something that should be top of mind for everybody.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, I think with anything like this, it's really an opportunity. Someone can go travel, but you can also go do something meaningful while you're traveling, and you can still have a whole lot of fun on that trip. And I think in the big picture of this, Save the Ice is really about people going out on adventures to have fun, go do something they would normally do, but then carry a little bit more with them. And so now they can tie their vacation or their adventure back into some meaning and purpose. And what better meaning and purpose than raising awareness to climate change, and potentially even raising funds for climate change. This may just be one trip, but think if you have thousands of people going on trips a year, the awareness that brings, and then also the ability to raise funding to really focus in on this project. And climate change is such a big challenge. We're not solving it, but we're going to help. And we're going to help by doing our part and being involved. And the more people we can be involved and we can give them an on-ramp being involved, the better. And with any good campaign, we need a couple things that really binds them together. One is the adventure and the travel of it, and then the other is something that anyone, anywhere can do anytime. And that's really our central rallying point. It's a thing that we raise a flag in the sky for, and I'd like Dan to tell us what that is.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think you said it wonderfully. Socially responsible travel is the future of travel. Without the socially responsible element, without those who are traveling actually thinking about the bigger cause, the higher purpose, then people are often going to a region and they're essentially they're the equivalent of visiting a zoo or watching something on television. They're not actually engaging and being a part of the community. They're not assimilating into the culture or interacting with the animals and the earth as it is. And so I think there's a lot of potential for us to take our upcoming trip and use that as a cornerstone for other trips in the future, whether it's for ourselves to go to other locations and expand the Save the Ice brand, or whether it's us setting the initial stages for others to follow along and go to the same places, to return to the Baltic states, to go along the same path that we've gone and see a lot of the same things and reinforce the message that we're trying to tell. So I think that it'll be on us to find platforms, socially responsible travel sites and news publications to really get the word out there and really show what we did and make it so that there's a very low barrier for entry for others to perform a lot of the same, go on a lot of the same types of trips and really make a difference in their own way.
I think that's a perfect segue to, I think, another topic that's remarkably clever from a marketing standpoint, but extremely applicable, and that's neat practices. So by saving ice, we're drinking it neat, and I think we really want to coin the term neat practices as something that transcends, throughout our campaign and beyond. So, Jeff, Mike, Dan, neat practices that we hope to encounter on this trip, and then potentially be able to, broadcast to other people throughout the world on sustainable saving ice practices.
Right. So just the range is limitless, right? It ranges anywhere from having vehicles that are better on the environment, diesel-powered vehicles, to not drinking drinks at bars with ice in it. Something as simple as that, and helping cut back on the waste of ice and the destruction of our environment is where we really have to begin. And there's the whole gamut in between that can be a place to exercise one's artistic creativity when trying to save ice and practice these neat practices. Mike, maybe you could talk a little bit about spreading the word of neat practices and some examples that are truly meaningful to you.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a focus on this trip. We're producing a new Discovery Channel online show called In the Making, and it's about really finding emerging technologies out in the world that can transform the world that we live in. And so on this trip, we're going to be focusing on identifying and telling the story of clean technology practices, of sustainability, whether it be a recycling program or solar panels or electric vehicles or biodiesel. We're going to really hone in on those and see what's happening in the Baltic states, and then be able to share those stories with the world. And it fits very nicely with what we're doing already, and I'm really excited to give this trip and give a series of episodes on In the Making, this focus on clean tech and how we go about sharing the story. Hey, if they can use it in the Baltics, you can use it anywhere. And so I want to see what people are doing. In particular, you think about a lot of these areas have a very kind of traditional way of living that has a very small footprint. And maybe something that we've really gotten away from in a lot of the cities. And so something we can look at and learn from. And so much of this is built around meeting people and understanding them and coming together. I'm just looking forward to meeting people and seeing what they're doing. And I was going to have Jeff say something, but he seems to have disappeared.
Yeah, Jeff dropped off. So, hey guys, I think we're going to wrap. We're going to be updating a lot of social media, Instagram at Save the Ice, Twitter, Saving, Google Plus, at this page that you're watching right now. So we're going to be doing a lot of real-time stuff and then obviously after the trip we'll have some videos as well. In general, I'm excited to go on this journey, particularly with you guys, and I'm excited for people to come along with us, share the journey with us. I think we all have a good head on our shoulders, and we're going to give it a good.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks a lot, guys, for your time and for everyone that's watching. And remember, save the ice. It's neat.
It's neat.
It's neat. All right. See you guys.